Homer, this is never easy to say. I'm gonna have to saw your arms off.
They'll grow back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whew.
For all the intellectual ruminations of an A24 chiller, and the waves of allegorically articulate horror that influenced them, sometimes you just want to watch a weirdo with a gimmick making mincemeat out of morons for about 90 minutes. That's why the Saw series has always been a pleasure I'm in no way guilty about. They're working from the same blueprints as the abominable Dr. Phoebes, but built by and for the indie attitude VHS generation, for whom Cube was just as seminal an experience as The Shining. I don't think any one of the Saw films is particularly great, and a few are outright bad if we're being honest, but as a lore-stuffed, continuity-crazed, trash-flavoured trash, the first 8 films in the Jigsaw mythology are a mildew-coated treat. So when it was announced that Chris Rock was reviving the franchise, and calling in the director of one of the best entries of this whole bloody affair, I was splat happy and ready to go. Having now experienced Spiral in both the rapt grasp of a darkened theatre and cuddled up on my humble couch, it's not quite the worst chapter from the Book of Saw, but it is by far the most disappointing. A lethargic, tonally bizarre waste of an established IP, and an off-target attempt to elevate material that was doing just fine in the gutter. A pig-faced killer uses a series of traps to pick off members of a corrupt police department. It's up to Detective Zeke Banks and his plucky young partner Detective Schenk to track down and stop the devious killer before they strike again. Spiral, while existing in the same cruel world as previous installments, is very much in the mold of a soft reboot / spiritual successor. Jigsaw's only ever present in old case files, there are no returning characters, and you won't need previous experience with the series to follow what's going on. Even still, this is slavishly beholden to a formula that, 9 movies in, has been diluted to a transparent, flavourless imitation of its forebears. And I'm not just talking about Saws 1 through 7, Jigsaw, or their video game offshoots. Those all had their tips of the cap, goopy nods, and genetic markers that pointed back to 7, but veered off in their own nasty, skull-smashing directions, far away from Fincher's nihilistic seed. Spiral, on the other hand, wants to be 7 so bad, it may as well have a marionette of Kevin Spacey dangling from the rafters of every scene. At least that'd be genuinely frightening. What we have here isn't a letdown because it sticks too close or strays too far from what worked before. It's that it compounds all the problems that have been present in the Saw films from day one, whilst ditching the joyous excess that made their failings in any way excusable.
Ah, fuck!
Look, I know it and you know it. The Saw series has more logical gaps than a Kanye West rant, and you're gonna need to smile politely and swallow your own load on that one if you're ever gonna have any fun here. The traps are incredibly unfair, at times unwinnable, and rarely the life-affirming lessons they're intended to be. And that's when Jigsaw isn't straight up murdering people.
And I despise murderers. Well, I've never killed anyone. Sick of it all. I've never murdered anyone in my life. The decisions are up to them.
Since the overlapping chronologies of 3 and 4, they keep recycling the John Kramer had a secret apprentice rug pull, every person they send to investigate these crimes is a goddamn idiot, and all that's forgiven the second another rube gets put through the grinder, or the now iconic musical motif starts up to denote a hand-rubbingly goofy twist. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. By trying and failing to move this universe into the realm of procedural prestige, Spiral jettisons the shock-absorbing schlock that might have saved it from these aforementioned issues, or indeed any of the many new flaws it ralphs all over the screen.
What the fuck?
For a spin-off that exists only because of Chris Rock's mega fan credentials, and the consistently profitable box office returns that 8 prior installments have enjoyed, Spiral treats its canonical ties like a dirty little secret. Saw's iconography is boiled down to trying tests and swirly graffiti. The traps are largely boring, uninspired, and lacking the arterial sprays we've come to expect. There's no mention of the 4 surviving antagonists, who were last seen carrying on John Kramer's twisted legacy, and the obnoxious but distinct frame-fucking cinematography is ditched in favour of flat, flavourless beige. Then there's the head-spinning tonal double take, whenever Rock goes from sour-faced and stoic
No.
to performing the gags that weren't good enough to make his last stand-up special.
He made $1 billion selling shrimp, and she still wouldn't fuck him.
Hey, eventually they got together.
Yeah. After she got AIDS, as soon as she got AIDS, she's like, hey, Forrest.
Now, I'd be absolutely fine with a shake-up to the status quo. Just so long as it brings something, anything to the table. But it doesn't. I've already stated why this is bottom of the barrel as far as Saw movies go, but when taken as a standalone thriller or autonomous spin-off, what we have is a mystery without a mystery. A whodunit, where there's exactly one massively telegraphed option as to who did it. Detective Schenk.
Your dad's the reason for all of this. He's why I want to do this in the first place.
It's a revelation delivered with all the flavourless splish-sploshing of a sloppy steak. But beyond that, Schenk's role as the killer dumps a tall glass of water over any social commentary the filmmakers were hoping would stick. Looking at the synopsis and the broad strokes of plot, Spiral would appear to be a reaction to the tarnished reputation of American law enforcement, the disillusion felt by persons of colour either holding a badge or hoping for its protection, the allure of vigilantism, and the fallacy of true justice when it's determined by a system of bias and self-interest. There's no reason why this couldn't have encompassed all those things in a conscientious way. Instead, Spiral pays lip service to the notion of saying something without uttering a word of substance. In fact, if you were to pull at those loose threads of political punditry, it'd all unravel into a hideous mess.
John Kramer didn't target cops.
The killer is an Aaron Sorkin-filleting, lib-brain version of Charles Bronson in Death Wish, a man who believes that by brutalizing a few dirtbag cops, he can reboot the entire American judicial system for the better.
You want me to help you kill cops?
No, fuck no. Just the bad ones.
It's the kind of thoughtless fallacy that reduces all the inherently warped systems of power, and the classist, racist, bigoted dynamics that keep them on top, to a bogus statement that everything wrong with law enforcement is down to just a few bad apples.
Let's face it, these cops, they're not gonna clean up on their own. But we take tongue here, a few bones there, but come around.
That's not an argument. It's a smokescreen to obscure what's really broken. Police brutality didn't stop after Christopher Harris, systemic racism didn't end with Derek Chauvin's imprisonment, and departmental corruption wasn't snuffed out with Precinct 7-5.
Fair point.
Then there's the garish choice to make the most crooked, dirty cop in the entire film the highest-ranking person of colour, whilst crowning the far fairer-skinned rookie the tough but fair anti-hero America needs.
You out of your fucking mind?
When Spiral uses imagery as culturally loaded as an unarmed black man being mistakenly gunned down by authorities responding to a distress call, or a dirtbag detective caught on a dashboard camera shooting an innocent motorist, it's all just treated as more carnage for the Colosseum. For anyone out there getting ready to spam the comments with, Keep your fucking liberal agenda away from my torture-loving chode. Don't forget that for all its eye-gouging extremes, the Saw franchise has already taken a few spins on the shotgun merry-go-round of social justice. Sure, when they take a stand against gentrification and the real estate bubble, the American healthcare system, and the insincere toxicity of influencer culture, it's about as subtle as a pit full of needles, but they're a note of consistency within the whole hypocritical Jigsaw ethos. They don't detract from the viscera parade, and you can tell they are actually trying. They also at least carry the pretense of trial-by-fire rehabilitation. When we discover Detective Schenk has been crafting these miraculous gadgets, he outright admits that they're only intended as overly complicated murder machines. Which, if you're trying to keep up, would make him a cop who hates cops and wants to be a cop by killing cops to make the cops stronger and better cops. And for some reason he thinks that requires the construction of elaborate apparatus that pull off fingers and shoot broken glass, because, he didn't realize he could just use a gun, I guess? I've been throwing punches at Spiral for the last 10 minutes or so, not because I hate it or think it's a bastardization of something sacred. It's because I was rooting for it. After all, I have a soft spot for most of these films, even while accepting and agreeing with most of the criticisms people have of them. There's a much better film that could have been made with this premise, these actors, this team of filmmakers, and the sickening yet brutally timely themes this manages to touch, but never once grasp. Whereas the better Saw movies scraped by on a more than the sum of their parts commitment to the bit, Spiral feels both unwilling to move beyond its lineage, but dead set on ditching everything that made them work. What we're left with isn't just a low body count letdown for the gorehounds. It's a helter-skelter lacking the heart, brains, and courage of convictions to cut to the bone, scratch the surface, or leave any lasting impression. A reverse bear trap for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, and Nicholas Hilaire Revere, and a weird looking puppet on a tricycle for all these amazing folks who help support the channel over on Patreon. Have you had a chance to see Spiral yet? And if you have, what did you think of it? Let us know down in the comments below, along with your personal ranking of the entire Saw series. Check out my list in the comments below, and make sure you do all the like, share, subscribe, click the bell nonsense. If you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description, where you can get early access to episodes, your name in the credits, entry to our private Discord server, and a membership to the In Frame Out Film Club. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.